Hey, what's up? This is Dr. Taylor. And, if you follow this channel, I like to review studies, and just things that I find are interesting, but things that are applicable, applicable to real life as far as, the strategies that we use in the functional wellness world, whether it be healing the gut and the importance of the microbiome or the importance of something like vitamin D or whatever the case may be. But check out this one I found today. I wasn't even really looking for this. I'll tell you the backstory. I had somebody who's done a toxin test and had a lot of toxins, and so I've been encouraging her to detoxify. Now, obviously, that's a broad term and it's very trendy, and there's a lot of things for detox, and there's 10-day detoxes, and there's infrared saunas, and there's supplements and blah blah blah. But we had a more formalized plan. But she was kind of like, I forget what she asked, but it's kind of like, hey, remind me again of why I'm gonna do this. And so I've found this study, and it's real. It just took me like 5 seconds to find. But these studies are all over the literature. That's why I like to share them, because I think they're super, super cool. It's old, 2015 is pretty old, that makes me feel old to say that. But this is in behavioral neurology. So there's a neuro journal, a neurology journal. But check out what the title says. It says toxin exposure and bioaccumulation. That's a key word. That's actually what I typed in when I was searching for this, because I said, hey, you should Google the word bioaccumulation to remind yourself of why you're doing this. Toxins accumulate, they accumulate in bodies, but it says toxic exposure and bioaccumulation, a common and potentially reversible cause of cognitive dysfunction and dementia. So check this out. That's a well-known thing. In my world, it's like, duh, but that's a well-known thing is toxins get in the brain. They can accumulate in the brain. That's a well-known thing. And that drives dysfunction. That drives inflammation. That drives oxidative stress. That drives neuroinflammation, neuroexcitation, neurodegeneration. That's a well-known thing. So that's why we want to reduce our toxin load. That's why we want to filter our air or filter our water or, detoxify or whatever it is, because these toxins can accumulate in the body. So here's what it says. It says, just juxtaposed alongside the ongoing rise in the incidence and the prevalence of dementia, again, this was 10 years ago, it's still rising, is the surge of recent research confirming that widespread exposure and bioaccumulation of chemical toxicants. I saw a study this weekend that was big in, I don't know, in social media, and I'm recording this video in October 2025, but it was all about this study that came out about pesticide exposure and how massively increased the Parkinson's risk was around this pesticide exposure. And it was like, if you looked at the map, I live in Illinois. It was like we were the heart of it. Illinois, Indiana, farmland USA. They're harvesting right now, and they spray those fields. There's pesticide residues. But anyway, I digress. But it says we know that there's a surge of recent research confirming widespread exposure and bioaccumulation of chemical toxicants. Evidence from sources such as the CDC reveals that most people have accrued varying degrees of toxins, including heavy metals, flame retardants, and pesticide residues within their bodies. It has been well established that many of these toxins are neurodegenerative. They have neurodegenerative as well as neurodevelopmental impact, on our little ones early in life and on our older ones later in life as a result of various mechanisms. That's my number one favorite word probably, but there's these various pathophysiologic mechanisms, including neuronal mitochondrial toxicity, the neurons, which you have 100 billion neurons in your brain. Each one has 8 to 10,000. I've seen estimates of like 20,000, but the lowest I've ever seen is maybe 2,000 mitochondria in each neuron. So it's an insane amount. Your neurons require a lot of power. They require a lot of battery power in the mitochondrial. So this neuronal mitochondrial can become toxic, and then that can disrupt neurotransmitter regulation. So then you get mood swings or dopamine swings or Parkinson swings or dementia swings, or acetylcholine would be dementia and Alzheimer's, or dopamine would be Parkinson's, but that's the neurotransmitter swings, or serotonin would be depression, or GABA might be anxiety, or whatever. But your neurotransmitters get disrupted. Eliminating these stockpiled toxins from the body may diminish adverse toxicant impact on human biology and may allow restoration of normal physiological function. It's basically saying detox can reverse these effects. In incorporating a review of medical literature on toxic exposure and dementia with a case history of a lead-exposed person diagnosed with dementia, this paper will overlook this, and it keeps going and going. But I don't think that you even need to scroll through the paper. I think the abstract alone says, hey, toxins are known to cause this. We know this is true. We know that things can accumulate. I'm just scrolling as I talk to say, like, there's other important things in here, like, oh, DDE, DDT, pesticides, DDT, DDE, these forever chemicals are still found, even though they're outlawed, years and years and years ago. In fact, I bet it says in here, it was banned in most countries in the early 1970s because of persistence within the human. And so these things are, again, these forever chemicals. A growing body of evidence has recently implicated many other exposures to organic chemicals. Formaldehyde, which I talk about a lot, has been linked to dementia. I've got a formaldehyde meter. Methanol, it's in ambient air, foodstuffs. It's in pollution. Pollution's been associated with neurodegenerative diseases and things too. Toxins, toxins, toxins. Some common pharmaceuticals like benzos have been linked to Alzheimer's. That's quite interesting. Various components of air pollution, like I just said, in many areas of the world have also been implicated in the escalating pandemic of dementia. Pandemic being a word that had a different meaning before 2020. Here's some of the metals, or here's some of the exposures. So let's look at this because this is like toxins. Lead, mercury, aluminum, zinc, common supplement, manganese, common supplement, arsenic, tin, copper, pesticides. Not going to read them all. You could see them. Organophosphates, probably the most famous. Flame retardants in our, kids' bedding and mattresses and, footy pajamas for kids. The manufacturers don't want your kid to catch fire, so they line them with flame retardants. And that's not good for your kid to have that on their skin all the time. But that's a well-known thing. The brominated, what are they called? Oh, I forget. But anyway, there's bromine added, there's chlorine added. So those things are bad. Solvents, toluene, perc. Perc is a thyroid toxin. In fact, it doesn't matter, but I've got a study pulled up somewhere about perc because I always have way too many things pulled up. But anyway, perc is a thyroid toxin that I found in a buddy of mine's labs when we've done repeat lab testing. Is perc, like, all his other toxins came down out of like 20, but his perc went up. So we're kind of looking at that. But farmies, air pollution, particulate, that's just dust. That's just crap in the air. Particulate matter. That could come from a wood burning stove. It doesn't always have to come from, a muffler of a car or a smokestack of a factory. Plasticizers, others, all these things, and these are the citations. All these toxins are exposed or associated with neurodegenerative diseases. So anyway, that's what the whole study is about. And it's just saying that detox can potentially reverse that. If you're 80 and you don't remember where you live, you ain't probably going to reverse that, right? But if you are maybe earlier on the path to neurodegeneration, or you're starting to have some mild cognitive impairment or things like that, the toxin exposure is something that you can either start eating organic food or filtering your water or filtering your air, or you can support your body's detoxification processes to get some of those toxins out of the body because they bioaccumulate, and that's why we do that. So with that being said, I'm going to go hop in a sauna and get some of these toxins out of my body because I don't want to have cognitive dysfunction and dementia as I get older. So hope that helps somebody and helps just kind of motivate you to detoxify. Now check the rest of the videos and podcasts and things like that on my channel to hear how do you do that. Or if it's something you want help with, it's not as easy as like, here's your 10-day detox protocol or whatever. There's a lot of nuances and things like that to detox, even that buzzword. But I think the point is that toxins cause problems, and avoiding and eliminating them is a potential solution.